Hey everyone, Willow here at Two Toe Farm. I'm going to share some garden hacks that I use in my garden just about every day, if not every week. I have been in the garden since I could walk, but working on an organic herb farm in rural Wisconsin gave me some skills and strategies that I use to this day. I wanted to give you some tricks that you can apply to your garden to make things run smoothly, saving you some time, effort, and stress. By far, the number one tip that I can suggest is doing a weekly walk around and checklist. Every Monday on the farm, we would take a clipboard and walk around and take a close look to see what things needed to get done that week. So take a minute in the morning with your coffee and make a literal list of to-dos. There are so many little things that need attention in the garden and can be easily forgotten or put off. Need to fix that stake or tie up those berry bushes? Does that lavender need some weeding? Put it on a list so that things don't fall between the cracks. It sounds too simple, but I can't express how helpful it is in the long term. You'll start to notice what stays on the to-do list every week, and you'll be able to tackle things sooner. This also gives you a good idea of the types of tasks that you tend to put off, so you can adjust your planning. This can also give you a good idea of any supplies that you need to pick up and to start making a list of things to collect. This also gives you a chance to observe any sort of pest management that you need to implement, like slugs or certain types of beetles that tend to get unnoticed in the spring. So this is a perfect example of why I need to do a list, because if you see here, I have this beautiful grapevine that has been climbing up along each side of the fence. You can see that some of these are getting a little bit unruly and going in all directions. I really just want this to climb on the fence that I have some strings on for it to guide. I also see that some of this is actually getting so bad it's coming through my columnar apple tree, and this is easily something that I would just be like, I'll come back to this in a little bit. But it would totally slip my mind and I wouldn't deal with it until it was going to be a bigger problem. So again, make a list. It is a lifesaver, and it's going to save you so much mental space that you can just walk around and enjoy your garden. Another really important step is to close down the garden each night. This is something that I am not that great at, to be honest, but I'm working on it. You want to avoid leaving supplies out and always put your tools away clean. This is just really a good habit in general, but it keeps your things in order and helps you not lose them. I can't tell you how many times I find a stray tool just sitting near a garden bed that I forgot. This also keeps your tools in good condition so that they will last you for many years to come. I inherited several really antique tools from my grandparents, and I would like to make sure that they last a long time, and maybe I can even pass them along as well. It's also helpful if you have a designated space for your tools. You can see here I do not yet, but this space is going to be changing in the next few months, so I didn't want to invest too much time into figuring that out. Tip number 3 is to harden off your plants. Make sure to put your transplants outside for a few hours a day for a week or so to acclimate. Start them out on a cloudy day and pay close attention so they don't get burnt or too dry. Give them a good 2 weeks, at least a week, before putting them in the ground to avoid shocking them. Not giving them time to adjust might also stunt them or delay the harvest significantly. If you're buying plants from a store, give them the same treatment, as many of them have been stored under shade cloth or even inside up until they get to the store. When you are potting up, make sure that you set up a transplant station. Make your setup work for you. Take an extra few minutes to set up a space at the right height with a large basin for potting soil, plant markers, and everything you're going to need. Have it set and ready to go so that the task doesn't feel so overwhelming. And it doesn't even have to be something permanent or long-term. I had this set up for just about a couple weeks while I was doing a lot of transplanting, and I could just easily come and go. That way, when you are starting certain seeds like kale and kohlrabi, you can plant them in clumps and actually prick out the strongest seedlings for the potting up, which is moving them to a bigger container. This saves space and guarantees that you're going to get enough strong, healthy starts, especially if you're using older seeds. You can also start them in a sterile mix of sand and vermiculite so that the roots separate really easily. Some seeds benefit from the buddy system and are more likely to bounce back from drying out if they have a friend. Just make sure to separate them when potting up for maximum growth. Something we really tried to practice on the farm was making the weather work for you. Even though we can only trust the forecast so much, keep an eye on things to plant accordingly. Overcast or cooler days, transplant and harden off. Rain coming, transplant those babies, and tackle the weeds after a good downpour. If you've got some dry, hot days coming, mulch everything. Here I had some rain in the forecast, so I actually quickly transplanted a bunch of these baby cabbages so that they would get the benefit of that big soak. I also used the pending storm as a chance to throw in some squash seeds. Since these are dry, ungerminated seeds, I'm actually just going to pop them in and let the rain do the watering for me. I'll do this often actually with many herb seeds and other things that will germinate with the rain but are going to do just fine sitting while they wait. Now, if these were live plants, I would absolutely water them in, but because they're just ungerminated seeds, I'm going to let the weather take care of it for me. One of the absolute best ways to get a lot out of your space is to do succession planting. Plan for multiple harvests by planting lettuce, broccoli, spinach, even cucumbers, and other short-term season crops every 3 weeks or so. You can also make the most of the grow season by fall planting. Start some broccoli in trays in a cooler or shady space until the weather cools and they can be transplanted right in. Salad can also be grown this way as it maximizes your space by having something ready to go and plug right into the ground after harvest. So one of the easiest and best ways to maximize your grow space is to do succession planting. So in this bed, actually, I've done a really early crop of mustard greens, which you can see are going to seed here. And underneath that, I actually have some brassicas, some broccoli, and cabbage that are planted underneath. And so they have had some protection from the heat and the bugs while these grow and go to seed. I'm going to pull these out really soon so that these can fill that space and have more space to grow and give me a whole nother crop. Here's another example of how using different harvest periods can pack the most into a garden bed. This is my brassica bed, and I actually have kohlrabi in between these cabbages because the kohlrabi are going to be ready to pick before these cabbages will actually head out. So I'm going to pick these in the next few weeks, and then those cabbages and broccoli will fill in those gaps and produce. Another thing I learned on the farm is that even perennials need to move sometimes. Strawberries and raspberries might need a fresh start after a few years of production. Transplanting new offshoots every so often can help. Obviously, trees are not going to go anywhere, but make sure that you're staggering your planting so that you don't end up with everything on the same life cycle. Plant something new every 3 to 5 years if you have the space. And keep the long-term plans in mind. Plan for certain spaces to go through phases of annuals while knowing it might be transformed later on into a perennial space. I plant squash and greens places where baby perennials are not taking up much space and are trying to get established. That offers some protection and keeps them covered while giving them some space to be productive. These blackberries and blueberries are a few years old, but they aren't taking up a whole lot of space yet, so right in front of them you can't really see, but I planted lots of garlic and peppers to use that space while these plants are still growing. So this is another great tip, is to save your seeds. This is actually corn salad or mâché, and this overwintered here completely and has gone to seed. I can hear the seeds hitting the ground, and so they'll probably self-sow, and I am totally fine with that because that is less work for me to do. Plus, it's falling into a path where I don't have anything else growing, so it's not going to have competition, and it's not going to be taking up valuable space in my garden bed. So I'm excited about that. I also have some green chard that actually overwintered as well, which I will be harvesting lots of seed on. And even some kohlrabi here with those yellow flowers, which I am thrilled about because I'm just about out of those seeds. So this is a bonus. Plus, these are actually giving some cover to some of these more delicate plants like the carrots and leeks and onions that don't do really great in this full sun heat of St. Louis. So it is a win-win. Pay close attention to harvest time and plan ahead for either one large harvest or multiple staggered based on your needs. Some varieties actually give you a choice, like broccoli, tomatoes, and beans, while other crops like corn and cabbage often just flush all at the same time. One harsh reality from the farm is that companion planting for pest control only gets you so far. Having pest pressure has a lot to do with what's going on outside of your garden. If all the surrounding houses are blank lawns and you have a lush blend of greens, no amount of marigolds will protect them. If critters are hungry enough, they will find a way in. Pests will fluctuate year to year due to conditions and life cycles, and there will be years where nothing seems to work. Check your local Facebook page to see what others are doing in the area that works for them. Another thing we did on the farm that I found strange was that we mulch everything, even the annuals. We use leaves, wood chips, and even cardboard to keep the weeds down. This keeps water from evaporating, protects the roots, and keeps the weeds down. I always throw some partially broken down straw after seeding an area, and I add to it as the seeds emerge after some weeding. This saves you so much time later in the season. I don't have a video for this, but when it does come to harvest time, set up your harvest and processing space, even if it's just temporary, just like our seed starting station. Make a space that you're going to enjoy being in and be comfortable. Plan ahead so that you have everything you need, bowls, knives, scissors, and set up some music, a podcast, or even a favorite show. Even better, invite a friend to help. I love to set up a space outside and watch the dogs and ducks while going washing, sorting, and processing veggies. Some tasks like shelling dry beans, nuts, or popcorn can be set aside for doing inside during the off-season. Save these jobs for winter so you can put on a movie and feel productive at the same time. Another thing to consider is to think of a lot of these tasks as investments towards your future garden. Some things like lots of fruits take years to produce, but they are well worth the wait. And lastly, like I've mentioned in other videos, don't underestimate flowers in the garden. Even in production-based gardens, it's important to incorporate beauty and build a space that you want to spend time in. Even on the busy farm, we always made sure to have beautiful flowers on the edges of garden beds and just pops of color. So don't hesitate to plant those snapdragons and marigolds or whatever else brings your heart joy. Well, that is my list for today, but I'd love to hear what other people who have spent time on farms would add to this list. Thanks for joining, and let me know if there's other videos or things that you would like me to go over in a future video. Take care, and happy planting.